All right, so I'm going to be going over how to simplify square roots using the prison break method. Okay. Now, you may not have ever heard of prison break, but it likely is the same idea behind how you know how to simplify square roots. So the square root of 35, what you would want to do is you would want to take 35 and write it as a product of primes, or what we call prime factorization. And how you find the prime factorization is you use something called a factor tree. A factor tree, you just take the number that you're looking to find factors of, and you just come up with two factors. So, what two numbers multiply together to get the number 35? Well, that would be the number 7 times 5. 7 times 5 is 35. And if you look, 7 and 5 are both prime numbers. So 7 times 5, that's the prime factorization of 35. Okay, that's writing two numbers multiplied together that are prime to get your number 35. And we'll actually come back to that. We're going to leave that one there, and we'll continue with 18. Okay, so you want to find and make a factor tree of the number 18. Factors of 18 are 6 and 3. Okay, 3 is prime, however, 6 is not a prime number, which means that I can still write 6 as two more numbers multiplied together. So what two numbers multiply together to get 6? That's 2 times 3. So what you want to look here is instead of writing the number 18, we're going to write the square root of, and then we're going to write the prime factorization. So 2 times 3 times 3. All right? And we'll go ahead and do 30 while we're on this track. 30 is 3 times 10. 3 is prime. And then 10 is 2 times 5. 2 and 5 are also both prime. So the square root of 30 we would write as, in no particular order, 5 times 3 times 2. All right. Now, in these three examples, there's only one that will actually simplify. So, and that one is this one here in the middle. So this problem here in the middle, the square root of 18, is the only one of these that will actually simplify. The other two will not simplify, and you'll realize that in a second. So, when we're doing prison break, we have two rules. Okay, two rules is, first one is that they only break out in pairs, so you only circle pairs. And two is, one escapes, one dies. One escapes and one dies. So you always want to go to your first rule first. So break out in pairs. So what I like to do is I like to actually circle the pairs. And this is where you're going to see that the first one, the square root of 35, there are no pairs, right? There's a 5 and there's a 7. They're not the same, so there's no groups of 2. So this has no pairs. Also down here for the square root of 30, you have a 5, a 3, and a 2. There are no pairs, so there's nothing to circle. And when there's nothing to circle and there are no pairs, that means there are no breakouts. There's nothing. You're already simplified. There's nothing you can do. So the square root of 35 and the square root of 30 are actually already simplified. This one is not, however, because as you can see here, we have a pair. We have a pair of 3s. All right, so what we did is we just did this first rule, break out in pairs. We circled our pairs. We know we're going to break out. So if you notice there, the 2 didn't get circled. The 2 is not in a pair, so the 2 will not break out, which means the 2 will just remain inside. So if you want to go on with the analogy here, this square root symbol is the jail. The numbers are the prisoners. All right, so we're breaking out in pairs. The 3s were circled. The 2 is not going to break out, so the 2 will just remain in jail, but definitely won't take the chance of losing its life. Right, it will stay in jail. Now with the 3s, on to rule 2 down here. One will escape, one will die. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. The first 3, let's make him the person that escapes. So he's going to come outside of the jail, out front of the jail. And the second 3, unfortunately, he dies. We don't know in which manner he does die. I would guess a guard got to him before he got to escape. But what we want to do here is figure out what are we left with. So what happened? So first thing is, who's outside of jail? Who escaped? 1 3 escaped, and that's it. So the 3 is out front. All right, and then who is left inside the jail? The only people that are left inside the jail are the people who didn't try to escape, the smart people. All right, which is the 2. So that means that the square root of 18 is really just 3 times the square root of 2. Okay, so that is how you would simplify square roots with just numbers. I'm going to do one more example here. Let's make it a larger number. How about the square root of 112? First thing is find a factor tree of 112. This is not going to be easy. It's even, so we know it can be multiplied by 2. So this is 2 and 56. Okay, 56 is also even. So we know it's 2 and something. What is it? 2 and 28, I believe. 8 is also even, so that's 2 and 14. And 14 is even, so it's 2 and 7. And 7 is prime. So there we go. There's our prime factorization. So 112 is really just 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 7. All right? Now we go on. First rule. First rule is that our numbers, only break out in pairs. So we want to go ahead and circle our pairs. So here's a pair. And here's a pair. All right, those are our only pairs. Now we want to go on to rule 2, which is, rule 2 is that when prisoners try to escape, they only escape. One will get out and one will die. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's say the first guy is always going to get out, the second guy gone, first guy in that group will get out, second guy gone. 7 never tried to escape, so we're not bothering with 7. All right, so what's left? Well, let's see. Who's outside of jail? So a 2 escaped and a 2 escaped. So we had 2 2s that escaped. And we had 1 7 that did not escape. He was left in jail. All right, so when those 2 2s escape, they're going to be multiplied together. So we have a 2 times 2 out front. We would just rewrite that number as 4, and then this would be our final answer. Now, a great check is to take this 4 times the square root of 7. If you have access to a decent calculator, 4 times the square root of 7, type that in your calculator, figure out what that number is, and then type in the square root of 112 in your calculator. You should get the same answer. That means that you properly simplified. Now, that's not a check to see if you fully simplified. It's just a check to see if you have the same number. You didn't make any mathematical errors. All right.